All I asked for was 80k subs, and instead you guys gave me nearly goddamn 81k. It's like you guys thought to yourselves, you know what? Let's just get him to 100k so he can finally face reveal so we can roast him and start plastering his face all over our lame ass memes.
No! Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's either that or it has to be your addiction to the Nintendo fanboy Saul. And with Seum, I'm starting to make a bit of a name for myself amongst that group. They do not like you reporting all the bad things Nintendo is doing. Seeing as how my last Nintendo Fanboys Takes video did so well, I figured we need a part 2 because the amount of messages I got from people telling me they seriously can't believe that our Nintendo fanboys advocating for allowing Nintendo the right to brick your console was very hard for them to believe, but I have all the evidence. You think I'm gonna pick out tweets with 0 likes? No. I find tweets with tens of thousands of likes just to really show people how many delusional Nintendrons there are out there who have zero problem with how Nintendo wants to navigate the industry going forward. For them, it's not a problem. And that's quite concerning. Last video, we talked about how Nintendo has an unprecedented level of control over the hardware you purchase, down to the point that attempting to modify your own system can result in Nintendo bricking it. And well, we have early attempts at people trying to do this, allegedly, because, well, reading some of this, seeing some of the spelling mistakes, either it's a translation error or some doofus just typed it out and said, "Trust me, bro." But whether it's real or not, that's not the focus. The focus is on the response from Nintendrons. But before we get to their reactions, let's quickly dive into exactly what the rumor is. Update. Switch 2 is unhackable right now. Scanning the chip bricks it due to voltage detection. Once it bricks, Nintendo calls you and demands a fee. Refuse to pay, see you in small claims court. Nintendo is not playing around. Do not try to hack this console. Now immediately you can see why I doubt this is real. Look, I may be a hardcore Nintendo hater, and I'm good at it, but this doesn't seem like something Nintendo could do in countries where it's way out of their jurisdiction. I love me a good story, but the story's gotta be real, so let's see if it even is. Some hackers got their hands on Switch 2. 1. MIG switch tested, and it immediately locks out the Switch 2, turning it into a brick, ends up boot looping. If you don't know what boot looping is, that occurs when a device repeatedly restarts itself without successfully loading the operating system in. I mean, yeah, the name is a giveaway, but some people will legitimately not know. And I don't want you to pause this video. I want you to watch it without stopping. It's good for my channel. So I'm just telling you. And if you don't know what the MIG switch is a flash cartridge for the Nintendo Switch that allows you to basically play game backups from a micro SD card rather than needing the physical cartridge. It functions like a storage device and lets you switch between different games by using a button on the cartridge. This is a device you can go and purchase, and from what I'm reading here is an attempt at using it has caused this user Switch to basically be bricked. Testers that prod the flash storage of the ROM chip, it immediately locks out the Switch 2, turning it into a brick. Switch 2 detects has some weird protection that it can detect voltage changes that tools cause when scanning the chips, even when it is minor. Unless an exploit is found and doesn't result into a brick when implemented, it won't happen in a long time. I know 3 testers that were working on hardware and software modding and know that they were doing just fine, that any work immediately bricks it, and Nintendo gave a troubleshooting step to reload the firmware from SD card, but it's stuck in boot looping. In the end, it had to return to Nintendo and they no longer allowed to be testers and had to pay for the console. Otherwise, it will go to small claims court as it has some form of internal reporting that unauthorized use was made.
You are fake news.
That's the problem where I have trouble believing this story. The hackers sent the Switch back to Nintendo? Call me crazy, but I don't know a single hacker that would ever make the mistake of sending a device that they were trying to hack into and then busted back to the company to fix it. That's where the story falls apart for me. Now, I know Nintendo didn't send Switches out to reviewers or anything like that. To play testers, maybe, but I've heard virtually nothing about this. Apparently, another tester had an early access to a game and it crashed and rebooted, but no longer worked until a reinstall of the firmware. So it may be a sign that an exploit that triggers a reboot to run unsigned code is out of question, as firmware will refuse to run and needs a clean firmware. Also, for your information, reinstalling firmware from SD card is not offline. It is a generic app that only connects to a Nintendo server to get the latest firmware, meaning it doesn't allow to install specific firmware version and no longer can be used as a workaround. Best bet is hope for an emulator and a way to dump Switch 2 ROMs. Now I have no way, absolutely no way of confirming any of this. Nobody does. If true, Nintendo has learned a lot from the Switch 1. For those of you who don't know, there was an exploit with the Switch 1 where removing one Joy-Con and inserting a specific device would essentially allow you to install your own custom firmware. This was a major oversight from both Nintendo and Nvidia, and it made the Switch 1 rather easy to mod and hack and turn into your own homebrew whatever the hell you want. So it seems Nintendo took that to heart, because such an exploit is disgraceful to them, but to gamers and consumers like us, this exploit is amazing and gave Switch an entirely new purpose other than just to play Nintendo games. They don't want you to have that with the Switch 2. Nintendo doesn't believe in fun. No doubt the Switch 2 will be harder to hack than the Switch 1. I couldn't imagine that they would make it just as easy or easier. But this story right here just doesn't have enough credible source to follow up. Nonetheless, that gave a lot of Nintendo fanboys online confidence. You should have seen them. This line of news for them was like a line of cocaine. They consumed the whole thing and then proceeded to think that they could take on a grizzly bear. I kid you not, these guys were outright celebrating this news. Well, you know, when I say news, I put it in quotes because I still have no way of confirming any of this. Even so, let's just say it's true. Reality is, there's nothing that's going to be able to stop hackers and modders from eventually jailbreaking this device. Probably not going to happen anywhere near as soon as it did with the Switch 1. But you give it a few years with millions upon millions of people trying, and eventually it's going to get figured out. Nearly every single piece of hardware has been able to be emulated and jailbroken. But remember, we're talking about Nintendrones here, all right? They are the most tech illiterate of all gamers. So it was really painful to see a big channel like Nintendo Prime out here trying to cap for this and celebrate. Oh my God.
It's true. Nintendo took it very serious to make Nintendo Switch 2 extremely hard to hack. It's going to be many, many years before this gets cracked. At least 2, maybe longer. Game leaks online via Game Dump is going to be a long ways off. In my honest opinion, this is good news for general consumers. It will be hacked one day, but Nintendo went all out so far to make it very difficult to do.
Don't shut the fuck up, you fucking piece of bacon!
Why'd I get picked up?
How is this good for consumers?
Game leaks.
Oh yeah, guys. Isn't that great? Isn't it totally wonderful that Nintendo will just brick your system for trying to customize it? That's real beneficial to us, the users. Why? Oh, that way there are no more leaks. Shut the fuck up. Get the fuck out of here. You are a goddamn fanboy. I'm sorry, but to be in favor of such a harsh restriction, all to ensure that nothing from Nintendo leaks. I'm like, oh, what could Nintendo leak? A new Metroid? Oh, wow. A new Mario? What? A new Pokemon? No, never impossible. A new Zelda? Whoa. Yeah, there's just so much that can be leaked from Nintendo. Gee, I always wonder to myself, I wonder what's the next game Nintendo's working on? Could it be one of the same 10 IPs they've been working on for like the last 30 years? Be realistic with me. What leaks from Nintendo have been damaging to the consumers exactly? As a matter of fact, leaks are what your entire channel runs on, Nintendo Prime. So why are you acting like they would be bad for you? You're saying one minute, oh, no, game leaks have to stop. But that won't ever stop you from ensuring you report on whatever leak you can find as soon as possible on your channel. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I actually like that you keep people up to date with Nintendo news. But this is easily one of the most bullshit excuses I have ever heard. Just face it. You get joy out of people not being able to emulate Nintendo games because you want to feel like owning a Switch and supporting Nintendo is an exclusionary club, and if other people can play the same things you play, that makes you feel like your experience is lesser because you're a fanboy and you don't like other people not having to buy into Nintendo's bullshit ecosystem to get that experience. It's the same typical console fanboy bullshit I've been seeing for years on this website. Nintendo fanboys are their own worst enemies. They can't enjoy playing video games unless they know the money's going to Nintendo. It's the strangest thing. These guys just don't want PC gamers and Steam Deck users having access to Switch 2 games. That's all there is to it, which makes no sense because it's none of their concern. As a matter of fact, that is solely Nintendo's concern. So you wonder why they care if they are not the corporation themselves. That's because they believe they are a part of Nintendo. They have a parasocial relationship with a corporation.
Nintendo has reportedly made Switch 2 near impossible to hack. More info here, YouTube.
Look at this guy! Respectfully, you have no idea what you're talking about. Modern Vintage Gaming with the W and the ratio. Oh no. Vindicated. Nintendo Prime ratioed me this week when he scolded me for not realizing that Nintendo locked GameCube games behind Switch 2 Online. For some reason, me not knowing that was the real problem, but Nintendo doing that wasn't an issue. I don't get Nintendo Prime. Well, actually I do. He's a fanboy. I understand the fanboy mentality better than anyone else. I've covered these guys for years. Same neurodivergent behavior. Now, in all fairness to Nintendo Prime, and I give him respect for this because it goes far above and beyond what any other fanboy does, he did go to YouTube to make a video correcting himself. Personally, I don't think he had to do that because all this is rumors, and people don't have to be that harsh to him. His lack of understanding of these things is pretty normal. He's just a casual gamer. He's not heavy into tech, not heavy into software, not heavy into the modding scene, but his enthusiasm, his support of Nintendo making it so you can't mod your own Switch 2 is very defensive of a billion-dollar corporation like Nintendo for no reason whatsoever. I mean, he can report on it, but to be enthusiastic and happy about it, that's just blatant fanboy behavior. You didn't have to do that. Everybody can see your blatant fanboyism on this subject, and to be honest, Modern Vintage Gaming was quite respectful in telling you you don't know what you're talking about. Definitely a lot nicer than me. I don't think Nintendo Prime deserves any kind of harassment or anything, but with the way he was acting, he basically taped a piece of paper on his back that said, "Kick me, please." I don't think he even understands who Modern Vintage Gaming is, but I would personally consider it an honor to be ratioed by Modern Vintage Gaming because there's always something to learn from it. It's just pure insanity for me to see how much Nintendo fanboys are willing to just let go of their personal freedoms and choices for the sake of getting a 20th Mario game. The fact that there are grown-ass adults willing to sell their soul to play Metroid Prime 4 is an embarrassment to the human race. But let's just say the rumor is true, and Nintendo Prime has absolutely no idea what any of it means, but he's advocating for it. Let me explain to you. If there really was a system put in place where the voltage detection is what determines whether or not you've tampered with a device that, you've paid full money for, that you apparently have no authorization to tamper with, and that results in Nintendo just bricking your system. Could you imagine the smallest of electrical discharges that could cause this thing to self-brick if this is true? Which again, I don't think it is because this would be disastrous. Could attaching a third-party charger cause this thing to brick? Such a restriction in place sounds very sensitive and bound to break. If any of it was true, Nintendo Prime would be cheering on what is single-handedly one of the greatest engineering mistakes in gaming history. And he has no clue because he doesn't really understand it. And I guess that's where MVG's frustrations come in, because these guys have no idea what they are talking about or the consequences of what they're cheering for. As long as it's in favor of Nintendo, they'll just blindly do it, even if in turn it doesn't favor them. And you can see that in the excuse Nintendo Prime has for why he supports it. Because of leaks, a very poorly thought out excuse. Like, you can tell he didn't even take more than 3 seconds to come up with one. But there you go. I mean, these guys outright support Nintendo bricking your system. Who knows how much of this will even be true at the official launch? We'll get to know more in less than a week. But knowing what these guys were supporting before any of it is confirmed is quite telling of their character. How well will any of this age? Well, if you want to find out, that's why you like, comment, share, and subscribe to keep up to date with everything I will be reporting on leading up to the official Switch 2 launch and afterwards. That being said, I'll see you in the next video.
Free Congo sucks ass.